Welcome to Clienting, Legal Marketing in the Digital Age with Guy Sakalakis and Kelly Street.
Hi, I'm Guy Sakalakis.
And I'm Kelly Street. Thanks for listening to the official episode number 1 of Clienting. So, everyone has lists of 2018 SEO and marketing trends and things to pay attention to in the coming year. So, we decided to not really make our own list, but go through the lists that we've been reading and tell everyone what's really here for 2018 and what to pay attention to in the coming months. Disclaimer, just like everyone else, we don't have a crystal ball, and what we think is kind of just based on our years of experience, 10 plus for Guy in the digital marketing space, and years for myself as well. And just kind of using those years of experience and then watching the trends that have developed over the past few years to kind of see what's coming over the next year.
Yeah, awesome. So I think this is going to be, sort of crystal ball-y. Some things folks probably already have heard about, but I kind of want to start the conversation through the lens of this recent Clio Top Law Firm Technology Trends to Watch in 2018. I saw Keith Lee and Kevin O'Keefe having a little bit of a discussion about this, and it made me think of something. Timing-wise, I'd been wrapping up Robert Reich's most recent book, Saving Capitalism, which I highly recommend if you're interested in that subject matter. But one of the things that Reich does is he separates work into these 3 major buckets: routine production work versus in-person service and symbolic analysis work. And, in the context of client development, which is what clienting is all about, and kind of looking forward to how things are moving into the future, 2018 and even beyond, I think it's worth thinking about how lawyers can communicate the value of their services in terms of symbolic analysis and in-person service work. So I don't think our whole conversation is going to revolve around that today, but I thought, it's episode 1, kind of get the juices flowing on communicating the value of legal services. And the more that we can communicate through in-person service and symbolic analysis and not market ourselves as this routine production work. And even though I think a lot of times lawyers tend to do it inadvertently, they're not really thinking about it, but whether you're publishing on a website, publishing wherever online, doing a podcast, the more that it comes across that the value that you provide to your clients is beyond this routine production work, those are the lawyers that are going to have success earning new clients. The ones that are trying to couch their services in terms of this routine production work, those are the ones I think that they're going to find trouble as we move forward, as technology assists us more with that kind of stuff. So my kind of opening thoughts on that, take them or leave them, but that's kind of my suggestion in framing, the kind of intersection of marketing and technology for law firms as it continues to trend.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that we have all these technologies now that allow for less in-person interaction and the in-person service that you're talking about. But I think it is actually leaving people craving more meaningful interactions, even in the client to lawyer and employee-employer workspace.
Absolutely. And it makes sense. Like, clients are also figuring things out, right? So like it or not, the routine production work, such as, filling out forms that lawyers have spent, charged a lot of money for a long time, that's the kind of stuff that if you're communicating that as that's what you do, legal services consumers are starting to become more skeptical of that and skeptical of the fees that they're paying for those kind of services. So I think that these are all really good conversations, especially when you're talking about a trends conversation that, look, there is a shift. There is going to be a lot of work left for lawyers. And in fact, I think in some ways there might even be more work, but it's not going to be routine production work. It's going to be, at least for the short term, more of this symbolic analysis work and in-person service work.
Absolutely. So, technology trends to watch for. Let's dive into mobile SEO changes. Guy, what do you see on the horizon there?
So the big thing that's coming up right now is this switch that Google's making to their mobile-first index. A little context on this conversation, if you haven't really been focused on mobile, but you don't have to be a search marketing expert just look around and you can see that people are on their phones. Some people are still on tablets, but the overwhelming majority of internet traffic is trending towards being on smartphones. Google knows this. They're switching to make their index mobile first and mobile priority. And so what that means for us as lawyers and really any business owner is that we need our pages to show up quickly and rendered appropriately on various devices. And we've been talking about responsive design for a long time now. So if you go to your website on your phone, listeners can do this right now while they're on their phones, pull up your website, pull up some web pages. If you have to pinch and swipe and zoom to see contact information or bios or that kind of thing, that's what we're talking about. Those are going to be problematic, and Google's going to start not necessarily penalizing you, but rewarding other sites that have made this switch to mobile. I think it's also important to make a note that if you work with a web vendor that's got you on like a separate mobile site, like an MDOT, I'd be thinking about moving off of that to a responsive design, not because I have something against MDOTs, but they're more vulnerable to having problems and needing fixes. So the big buzzwords here, and we'll say this a lot, that we'll put some of these links in the podcast notes, but we can't cover everything. But I want to make sure that folks had a reference point for looking up things like Google's mobile-friendly test and looking up things like responsive design, especially if you're on WordPress. Switching to a responsive design is really kind of a no-brainer at this stage.
Yeah, basically, make sure that your website does not frustrate your clients or consumers. If you go on and you're annoyed by the things that you either can't find or that take too long to find, it's time to make a change.
Absolutely.
So moving on to voice automated advances. This is big right now. Of course, there's Google Home, Amazon Alexa. We had an Alexa at home and we got rid of her. We just weren't seeing enough interaction. But I know that in the legal industry, there are now things that you can use your Alexa for that make her, or make it, I should say, I shouldn't be calling Alexa her, that make it really valuable. Like voice time tracking with Tally is a really big deal right now and just starting to come about. And then voice search for bringing it back to marketing and SEO.
Yeah, so I think that we're really at the beginning of seeing the more wide adoption and impact of voice search. I can tell you this, the big players are heavily invested in winning the voice search game. And if you think about it, it makes sense, even though you had your experience in terms of not interacting with it. I think from a user standpoint, there are definitely search tasks that lend themselves to voice over even trying to access your phone. I'll give you my experience. So I won a Google Home in a Yext Twitter contest, which shout out to Yext, and they're really on top of knowledge management on the web. But I wasn't really inclined. I wasn't like super into getting some kind of like one of these home devices, but we got one. And I noticed that there are certain things that we tend to use it a lot more for. And the other thing that I noticed with a lot of my friends that have one is their kids are constantly asking it questions. So general questions, weather, science questions. Now we can debate the veracity of some of the answers that these tools might be giving at this stage. But I think it's more likely that we're going to start to see that when people are sitting around dealing with these legal life issues, they're going to start turning to these at-home voice search type devices to ask those questions. And I've also just recently hooked up my Google Assistant to my Google Home. So things like you can do, okay, Google, add whatever to your shopping list. And so I was messing around with the Google Assistant on my phone even, and I also noticed that I was like, oh, well, what happens if you start just searching for lawyers? And, of course, the search results are integrated with that. And so it actually gave me one lawyer, though. So from a search standpoint, if you think about the impact of that, lawyers are competing for 10 blue links, local search packs on desktop and even the mobile devices, where on doing this voice search of asking, who's the best lawyer closest to me, the Google Assistant gave me one law firm. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I don't think there's a lot to optimize right now for voice search, except that some of the more traditional things that we talk about, even with people also ask results on regular Google, is having publishing FAQs, structuring content on your site where it's appropriate in the form of question and answer so that some of these voice searches you'll start to populate for those. I think there's a lot more coming out with this stuff, but it's definitely something to have on your radar as we move through 2018.
Yeah, you brought up kids asking questions and parents using them to solve questions for their kids. And that's one thing I know. When kids are using a new technology, when kids are paying attention to something, that usually means we as adults should probably pay attention to it too, because there's something there, and that's probably the direction that things are going to be trending.
I'm convinced.
I guess maybe we should get a new Alexa in our house. Oh, well.
What did you do with it?
We donated it.
Okay.
And when we dropped it off at the Goodwill, our local Goodwill, the worker took it right out of the bag and set it aside. I'm guessing he is now happy and using Alexa at his house, which is great.
That's great. I was wondering if you smashed it in the garage or something because you were worried it was recording you or something like that.
No. Always donate. Always donate. It still worked.
100%.
So next on our list to kind of dive into and talk about is Google My Business updates. There's a lot kind of happening and changing and evolving with Google My Business, and they're always sort of adding new features and taking them away. And so what can we look to for Google My Business right now, Guy?
Yeah, so this would be higher on my prognostication list of where things are trending. And most of the time, with some very conspicuous exceptions, if you follow where Google's making investments and making updates, you can see where they think things are going. So they want to be providing great answers in the local small business community sector. That's an area where they've taken a lot of heat for not serving as well. And I think Google My Business is part of answering some of those concerns. So the big things to keep on your mind for Google My Business, one is the question and answer section. So if you pull up your business on Google My Business, you'll see there's a question and answer section now for your Google My Business profile. And what I've seen, in fact, I just pulled this up the other day, I tweeted about it, but your clients are going on to your Google My Business profile and asking questions. And in fact, I just saw one where it was what's going on with my case? And if lawyers aren't up on this stuff, those kind of questions almost serve as a proxy for negative reviews. So, what kind of impression does it leave when someone that, regardless of how they get your name, goes and looks you up online and sees your clients asking about the status of their case with no response from you in this question and answer section? So question and answers, definitely look into that. Check your site, check your profile to see what's going on, if anybody's asking any questions, and consider how you might want to respond to those. Another big one is Google Posts. So that's not brand new, but I think we're going to see more coming out of Google Posts and more functionality. I know Joy Hawkins mentioned that she's seen some examples of video on Google My Business coming out in the wild. But posts allow you to actually post content right to your listing on your Google My Business page, which will come up in searches for your name and your firm name. One of the things I've seen creative lawyers doing is using the Small Thanks with Google tool to create visual representations of some of their testimonials and then using those as posts. So that's another way where ethically permissible, depending on what state you're in, you can take some of your client testimonials and you enter those into Small Thanks with Google, post them on via the Google My Business Google Post functionality, and now you've got an additional spot to highlight positive reviews on your Google My Business. So those are two of the bigger ones, posts, question and answers that I'd be focused on. I think we're going to see video there. And again, remember, the reason that this is important is Google My Business's current iteration is the listing that's going to show up most of the time when people search on your name and your firm name. And, again, no matter how people hear about you, they're more and more likely to go look up for information about you online.
Absolutely. So I am going to shake things up from our list a little bit just because you brought up video in the Google My Business section. And it reminded me that there is a new feature that Google Search is adding in different areas where there are celebrities answering questions. Who is so-and-so celebrity? And the celebrity will answer the question. And I'm going to skip right to visual search and talking about that really quick because I want to, while it's on the top of my head, ask your opinion, Guy. Do you think that there is a future, at least in the near future, where videos can come in the queue for answering questions like, how do I get a divorce in the state of Indiana? And a lawyer could make a video and have that video pop up as their search result.
Yeah, so I think some lawyers have already been experimenting with video for a while, but there are a couple of things on video specifically that I think we're going to see more trending towards. The first is this idea of live streaming video. I think that there are a couple of lawyers that have been pulling this off more effectively, and that's not just on search platforms. You're also seeing this on social platforms as well. So under the video umbrella, I would say definitely start investigating what kind of things lawyers are doing creatively with the live streaming video. But in the intersection of video and search, I think there's no doubt that video as a medium allows lawyers to convey knowledge, skill, experience, personality in a way that other media don't. And so where you can pull it off effectively, I think it's really powerful. So your next clients care about what it's going to be like working with you. And part of that is going to be your personality, and part of that's going to be the way you approach your practice and how you treat clients. And those messages can come through much more effectively in many cases through video, versus just the written word. So I'm definitely long on video. I think that video content, when done well, is extremely effective. However, I think it's important also for us to clarify what we're not talking about, which is basically repeating your TV commercials on YouTube, because you're more likely to draw some, negative feedback, let's say, from those types of things than shorter, digestible, whether it's how-tos or whether it's just kind of talking about some of the reasons why you started practicing law.
Yeah, those very funny YouTube videos, either the commercials for your firm or Conrad Sam and Mockingbird had a post a few weeks ago with the Don't Eat Your Weed video. And that is a very funny video. It definitely could go viral and can get you a lot of attention. But those are not the things we're talking about, because those aren't really necessarily adding value to your potential client experience. They're not engaging and creating a connection. Well, they're certainly engaging, I should say, but not really creating a
clickbaity.
Yes, that definitely clickbait.
Yeah, I think again, I think everybody's got to find their one thing that you and I always talk about is finding voice and matching voice to audience. And, I think that's a big part of figuring out your publishing voice, whether it's in writing or audio or in video. But video as a format is definitely here to stay. Makes sense. It's from a user standpoint, it's a much more rich experience than reading blog posts. And again, it really humanizes, people that are dealing with lawyers. It's usually something that's very scary for them, really almost in any context. A lot of people don't have a lot of experience if you don't know lawyers personally. And so video can really help you convey who you are and how you can help people in a way that often that writing can't.
Yeah. Absolutely. So heading back into the Google vein of thinking, what's going on with the knowledge panel and reduction in featured snippets on Google searches?
Yeah, I think Google's doing a lot of testing in this area right now. The conversation I always like to have about this is, remember what Google's ultimately trying to do. Google wants to, where they can, provide answers, right? They don't want you to leave Google. They prefer that you don't click through to sites if they can avoid it. They want to keep you on the search engine result page and deliver a best answer for you, again, where they can. And so that's why when you see business lookups or when you see a lot of these search journeys that end with a single answer, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with even Google Assistant, they're right now playing around with this knowledge panel idea, featured snippets that basically highlight one of the results, which a lot of SEOs have been calling that kind of position zero. Stat, the search analytics software tool, those folks put out some great research on featured snippets and how to generate featured snippets and the different types of featured snippets. The short version is that, some of it is how you mark up your content. Some of it is the authority of your site, but it really is a kind of endorsement from Google when you get one of these featured snippets. And I think that the more that you can find ways to structure your content to generate these featured snippets for the right queries, you're aligning yourself with where Google's trying to go. So I wouldn't hyper-focus right now too much on the flux that's going on with featured snippets and knowledge panels, but I would focus on some of the research that's gone out there and looking at what kind of queries are generating featured snippets, and then how to structure your content in a way that you can take advantage of those where you can.
Yeah. And speaking of search results, search engine result pages are getting more and more individualized, of course, based on your location or where Google thinks you are, based on the other things that you've searched for in the past and their algorithms and everything that Google and search engines know about you. And this, of course, is increasing dramatically as time goes on. Smarter searches give us smarter results, make people happier, that sort of thing. How is this coming to play out?
Yeah, it's just more of what we've seen. So Google's getting more and more signaling information, both on personalization as well as localization. So a couple ideas here. One is that, as a lot of lawyers know, like in the past, lawyers would do things like create virtual offices, or maybe they were able to get their local listings to rank outside of their the city where they have an office. That's getting more and more difficult to do as Google gets better and better at figuring out the location of users. For example, I was kind of in a tweet chat with Darren Shaw of WhiteSpark, who's got a great blog and a great tool and some great information on local. So definitely check out WhiteSpark. And Dan Liebson from Local SEO Guide, another preeminent leader in the local search space. And we were talking about proximity, but what I found was interesting is, as I was having this conversation, I was walking around downtown and doing different lawyer searches, and I started noticing that even just on crossing the street would give me a totally different set of results. Using a different device, totally different set of results. So
Guy, you walk around town just Googling lawyers all the time?
That's basically my life. I mean,
yeah.
That's my job here.
Super dedicated. Sorry, I just had to call that out pretty quick.
Well, I was
for
walking
anybody
home.
Who did.
I was walking home for.
All right, maybe a little less weird.
Yeah. Well, I've only really done it like less than a dozen times. We'll say that.
All right. But, continue on with your thoughts
yes. now. Anywho, what to take away from this, right? So one, I think it's really important for lawyers that tend to want to spot check their rankings. So there are a couple of reasons why this doesn't really work. One is that obviously there's the personalization aspect. You searching on your phone is going to give you personalized results to you based on your search habits. And I'll even tell you this. I think a lot of lawyers that use AdWords should know that if you drive up impressions for your own ads and aren't clicking on those results, you're hurting your click-through rate, which can impact your AdWords quality score. So you actually might be increasing the cost of some of your clicks by daily searches on your name, especially if you're bidding on that. But in any event, spot checking rankings, it really doesn't give you that much information except what Google thinks are the results on that search at that time, at that location on your device. Now, periodically searching yourself on Google, I think that can be useful for lawyers, especially lawyers that don't have the resources to invest in rank tracking tools or don't really want to get bogged down with poring over Google Search Console data. I know Conrad recently had a post that was discouraging lawyers from searching at all on Google, and I would suggest you go check that post out. But my take is, I think periodic searches on your name is a good way to stay connected and see what your potential clients are seeing when they search on your name. So, once a month, if you search on your name and just see what are the people seeing. Are they seeing happy clients singing your praises? Are they seeing that you're publishing? Are they seeing videos? Or is it very difficult to find information? Or are there negative reviews? So I think that for the average attorney that's not spending a lot of time and money on monitoring what's going on about them online, I think that doing some monthly, quarterly searches is probably a good idea. But don't rely on those daily spot checks to get a sense of how you rank for particular things. It's only going to get more personalized and more localized as Google gets better and better at targeting this stuff.
Awesome. So another thing that I ran across was advances in Google and all of that, but more on an individual or personal or business focus of Google is watching what you do. And I know that we at Attorney Sync are very thoughtful about the things we do for our clients. We want to keep our white hat on and kind of go about things the right way and follow Google Webmaster Guidelines. But I think they have kind of come out and said a little bit more, at least they've said, that they are going to be, they being Google, are going to be watching more for spammy links, watching more closely at broken links, stuffed keywords, kind of like the old terrible practice that I used to do when I was first working on websites years and years ago, where you would you would put keywords in the bottom of the website and just make them the same color as that bottom of the website, and then they would kind of disappear, but they would help you rank higher, and then that practice doesn't work so well anymore, and in fact gets you into big trouble with Google sometimes.
Sure, and I think these are all good points. The way I like to think about it is there's Google search ranking quality team that's trying to tweak their algorithm to give better results to users. There's Google, the public relations arm, that wants to persuade people not to spam. I actually was just wrapping up a post that'll be on Bright Local that talks about link building and measuring quantity versus quality. And it pertains to this because quality is kind of a spectrum, right? It's not binary. You can't go anywhere and say, this is a link that Google likes and counts. Google generally says editorially given links are given more weight. Manually, links that are intended to manipulate PageRank are given no weight, and significant patterns of those can actually harm you with things like manual actions. I think for me, the key is to try to work within the guidelines, but also recognize what your cost benefit is and what your game plan is, right? So if you're invested long-term in search, you recognize the value of it, of organic recognition, and you're going to be in it for the long play. I think that, you really want to focus on the more editorial, create great content, market that content to people in ways that are going to encourage them to share and link and talk about it. But the other thing I always say is that spam works until it doesn't. And so I've seen firms that have taken more aggressive strategies and, have conscientiously, I've had lawyers call me and say, hey, we want to implement X, Y, and Z that are like extremely black hat approaches to link building or whatever, which I just think is interesting because, ultimately the vendors and the marketers are the ones always left holding the bag with that kind of stuff. But the point is that yes, Google is getting better. Google is trying to distinguish the spammers from those that are putting forth the kind of things that are beneficial to their users. They don't always get it right. And in fact, I can show you plenty of examples, especially in local search. We all know that spam still is alive and well in local search. But, if you're going to take a long-term plan, I think you're better off aligning yourself. I can tell you that in about, around 10 years of doing this, there are firms that used to rank very prominently for extremely competitive keywords that are nowhere to be found in search results anymore. So if you think about it, if you're making big investments in that kind of stuff, that can really hurt. So I think it's important just to kind of understand the risks on balance and the cost of doing certain things. But another thing, too, that I think is really important to note here is that if you go download the quality rater guidelines that Google puts out, that they use to actually try to improve search results from a human perspective, the big focus, especially on your money, your life pages, that's their term, not mine, that include legal searches, this idea of expertise, authority, and trust, this EAT concept, is really important. So forgetting about link building for a second, if you're publishing on your site and your content isn't written authoritatively, it's not designed to establish trust, you're going to find your pages are not going to be as competitive as those that are making bigger investments. So simple example is if you're outsourcing content to a different country and they're giving you very thin kind of talking point type stuff, but not really diving deep into subjects, it's going to be much more difficult to get those kind of pages to rank. Now, does it happen? Sure, you still see those kind of pages, but again, talking about aligning yourself with where Google's going, not where they are today. And I think there's a good sense that we're going to see more and more of this expert written content surfacing than a lot of the thinner, less quality stuff. At least that's what Google's trying to do.
Yeah. So, in the vein of authoritative and expert, are there things that a new lawyer, a young lawyer, or someone who's just new to legal blogging or legal content creation, is there something that they can do to kind of establish a solid base of authority in Google that kind of, I shouldn't say gives them a leg up, but something that they can do to kind of get the ball rolling a little bit faster?
Yeah, you alluded to some good points in there that I think are worth kind of talking about and making some distinctions. So, not everything that you publish online goes under the blog umbrella, right? So you can go to kevin.lexblog.com, and Kevin's the expert on legal publishing, in particular in the blog context. And so from a blogging standpoint, if you're a young lawyer, I think that if you've got the time to do it and you're committed to it, I think it can be a really great way to demonstrate your expertise, start meeting other lawyers, meeting other people that might be interested in your subject matter. It can position you as an authority on a very specific subject. And as a general rule, I think that if it's the type of thing that if you can write, I think that's a good area to invest some of your professional time. But I also think it's important to reiterate that not everything is blog content. And so there are all sorts of different ways that you can publish online that don't even necessarily speak specific to your knowledge of legal. And they're back to this idea of giving people a look behind the screen of what it's like being a practicing lawyer, what some of your interests are as a lawyer, what some of your interests are in your local community. And again, that can be publishing on social networks, that can be publishing on your blog, that can be publishing on other sites. But I would encourage all young lawyers that are trying to develop that professional presence to begin to listen first, identify the places where people are having conversations about the subject matter you're interested in. Don't just dive in. It's very similar to when you're meeting people at networking events. Like if you're a bulldog and jumping in conversations and interrupting people and in doing that online as well, I think that's going to give people a certain perception of you. If on the other hand, you spend some time listening, especially to those that are more experienced in online publishing and practicing law more generally, and then start engaging them online. If I were a young lawyer right now, that's what I'd be focused on. But I think the other thing too is, aside from just the legal stuff, publishing stuff that's interesting, in order for you to actually start resonating with an audience, you've got to get it in front of the audience. And the better way to get things in front of an audience is to write stuff that people find interesting. Don't go online and try to recreate your legal treatise on your subject matter. You've got to try to find ways to publish online that's digestible. Online's a different format, especially on smartphones, especially in video. You've got to be able to find ways to make things interesting, shareable, bite-sized, clickable, likable, and linkable, because those are the types of things that are actually going to help you not only just appear in search results, but spread your message across social networks and other places online where people are congregating having these conversations.
Yeah, not to circle back too much into our visual search conversation from a little bit earlier, but this does remind me, speaking of content being in different types of formats, that Lawyers had a great podcast episode about Pinterest and using Pinterest and infographics, visual elements that can get people interested in maybe your legal topic or things that they could be searching on that have to do with your practice area. You're a family lawyer, 10 things to try before you contact a divorce lawyer, that sort of thing would be a great little infographic to have and put up on Pinterest and is easily shared.
Right. And the other thing, even just kind of being more general about it, especially if you're like an intellectual property lawyer that helps creators that are creating digital content online, you want to go to the places where they are, right? So that's going to be places like Pinterest. You need to understand how Pinterest works. Some of these things, it sounds, going back to the opening of the conversation where, it's suggested that one of the trends is that lawyers actually start using the internet. It seems silly to have to mention that, but, a lot of those traditional concepts of going where your potential clients are, they're online. A lot of them are online. It's not just if you're an intellectual property lawyer that's helping creators, but finding where those places are. If you're potential clients are on Pinterest, you probably need to be on Pinterest, and you definitely need to understand how Pinterest works. I think in those capacities, that using imagery and using visuals to communicate the value of your service and just to get to know people, extremely powerful. Now, on the flip side of that, I think it's important that people understand that we're not suggesting going to spam Pinterest with a bunch of useless infographics. Infographics tend to be abused, but finding ways to visualize data that's actually useful to an audience, I think kind of a no-brainer at this point. Definitely more and more effective in terms of connecting with audiences.
Yeah. Let's go to our last thing on our list here for our 2018, what do we need to pay attention to? New search rank updates.
Yeah, so I think, one thing I get asked these kind of questions all the time about, what's going on with Google. And, again, with the caveat that spam still works until it doesn't. Some of the recent ones, you hear a lot of these names, right? You hear like Maccabees is like Barry Schwartz at Search Engine Roundtable, I think, coined that one. But, we got Penguin and Panda and all this kind of stuff going on. And I think the bigger thing with updates is not to hyper-focus on any given update, but at least right now, for me, the things I'd be focusing on are obviously building content. You've got to have something there. You've got to have linkable assets, I think, in order to actually get people talking about and linking to your content. Two, there's no doubt links, but links it's becoming a much more and more of a quality game than a quantity game. So, focusing on if you're a local lawyer that serves a local community, you want to be targeting those local links. I think that Google's going to continue to update the algorithm to reward businesses that are more visible and active and link worthy in their local communities than in the past. It was mostly a page rank, domain authority, citation flow game. I think that's less important. I think focusing on the local area, your local community, that's the kind of stuff that Google wants to reward. So that's what I'd be focusing on, and that is what we focus on in terms of link building for a lot of our clients. All
right. So do you have one big takeaway for people for 2018?
A lot of it's a similar message. Identify your audience, listen to your audience, listen to what your existing clients are telling you, the questions they're asking, find ways to publish on that kind of stuff. Search engines, the internet in general, they're going to reward businesses and creators that are resonating with their audience, that are delivering on that message with their audience. So technologies in 2018, you're going to continue to see new stuff. Make sure you're using it in a way that you're getting positive feedback from your audience, whether it's voice search, mobile websites, or live video. Listen to what that audience is telling you. Go to where your target audience is. Participate in those conversations, and I think that you'll see some upticks in 2018.
Absolutely. Be where your clients are looking and provide them the information they're looking for. Well, we wish you guys the best of luck in 2018 and hope that you keep tuning in to future episodes of Clienting. Make sure to click subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah, thanks so much, everybody, for listening in. And definitely send us your feedback, your questions, and topic suggestions, because we'd love to hear from you and love to be able to have some conversations. Even if you'd like to be a guest, we'd love to have some guests on, too. So thanks for tuning in.